is Sheila DeStefano, and I live in Allentown, New Jersey. And my daughter Gracie is 7 months. She was born on Thanksgiving,
Oh,
7 weeks early, just about.
whoa.
But yeah, where should I start? Prenatal?
Did you know anything prenatal?
I didn't. My 12-week sequential screen came back with a high risk for Downs.
Hmm.
So it was like a low HCG and like a high AFP level or something like that. And so we thought that she might have Downs, but then we didn't get an amnio. We ended up getting like doing the Clary test, and the Clary test said that she was negative for Downs or for any other trisomy thing going on.
Okay.
Um, but I would say around like 26 weeks or so, I was so huge. Like I felt like I was full term.
Yeah.
Mind you, I found out I was pregnant with Gracie when my son Daniel was 5 months old.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so they're 13 months apart.
Whew.
So when I was like 20 some weeks pregnant, I was like, this is like crazy. I feel like I'm full term. I know I just had a baby. So I mentioned it to my gynecologist, and I didn't really think that, or my OB, I mean, and I didn't think that they would think anything of it. But I guess they listened to me, and I was just like, I don't know, like this, I'm so big. So they sent me to maternal fetal medicine, and that's when they were doing ultrasounds. And they said that her abdomen was measuring 3 to 4 weeks in advance of everything else,
Wow.
and that she was a big baby. But other than that, they didn't really have anything else to go by. So basically, they were like, "Oh yeah, you might, she might have some like rare genetic disorder, but we don't even know what we would be looking at." And uh, she's probably just a big baby though, because she was measuring big.
Yeah.
Um, so then fast forward at like 30 weeks, I started having like contraction, like Braxton Hicks, but like they started to get painful overnight, and I was like, something's not right. So I went to get tested, and they took my fetal fibronectin. So
Mhm.
if it comes back positive, then that means like you could have the baby at any time. If it comes back negative, you're good for at least a week. So mine came back positive. So they sent me to the hospital to get 2 doses of steroids. And then she wound up coming about 6.5 weeks early. So
Wow.
I had premature rupture of my membranes. I was at home. It was my husband's birthday. We had just
Oh,
we just went out to dinner.
oh.
And I came home. I was on the couch because I was so big and so uncomfortable. I couldn't even sleep in bed anymore. So I was on the couch, and then like all of a sudden, I just felt like a rush, and I ended up going, and they were trying to figure out whether or not we should wait. It was like a Tuesday, and they said maybe we need to wait until Friday
Oh man.
to induce you. But then they decided that it was too high risk with infection and everything else, so they induced me Wednesday. And so the only thing prenatally was the fact that I had the polyhydramnios, so that was
Hmm.
one. She was large gestational age. Her abdomen was measuring like 3 to 4 weeks in advance. And before they induced me, they had to get an ultrasound just to make sure her head was down. And the ultrasonographer was like, "Oh, look, she's sticking her tongue out." And I was like, that's interesting. And
Yeah.
like it like crossed my mind for a second that like maybe she did have Downs, because
Hmm.
that was something that came back high risk. We didn't get an amnio, so it was, the Clary test only like 99% positive, or 97%. So
Wow.
I was just, well, maybe that's, maybe she does have Downs, because, as we know, like Downs children do tend to have a larger tongue thrusting and stuff like that. So I kind of just let that thought exit my mind. Went through labor. They ended up taking her to the NICU right away. And when my husband came back, he was like, I don't know, something's weird. They keep asking me, like, did you get genetic testing done? And he's like, I feel like something isn't right. So before they dropped me off to maternity ward, we went to the NICU to visit her, and I noticed her tongue was like big, and she was like thrusting it, and I felt like something doesn't seem right, but I just kind of was just like, I just left it alone. And
Right.
anyway, so the next morning the neonatologist, she was the one that said, I have some concerns. There's this like rare genetic disease called Beckwith-Wiedemann, and we don't see any other physical signs, but she does have a really large tongue. It could just be an isolated finding. And I'm like, what was that called again? And she's like, Beckwith-Wiedemann. So I Googled it,
Yeah.
of course. Why wouldn't you?
Uh-huh.
And the whole time that we're there, they kept saying that it was an like they were saying we don't see any other physical findings, but from what I Googled, she actually had all of them.
Really? That's so interesting.
So she was 6 pounds 2 ounces, born 6 weeks early.
Yeah, that's
So
big.
she has a large gestational age. She has the stork bites on her eyelids and her forehead. She has pits behind her ears and additional creases.
Yeah.
She had neonatal hypoglycemia like bad for a little while. So she had a lot of it. She did not have the omphalocele, but she had a lot.
Yeah.
And once I Googled it and I saw all of that, and they were still saying like, oh, maybe it's just an isolated finding of macroglossia, and I'm like, that doesn't. I'm a science person, like,
Yeah.
as are you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that doesn't even make any sense. Like, I don't know why any child would have an isolated finding of macroglossia. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Right, without any reasoning for it.
Yeah, so they were actually so she was at the NICU at the hospital that I gave birth at for 14 days, something like that, and they had reached out to Dr. Kalish
Hmm.
from CHOP, and they said, this is a picture of her, and what do you think?
Hmm.
And Dr. Kalish, so our NICU was like ready to discharge her home with like an apnea monitor or something like that.
Right.
Dr. Kalish was like, no, like we should really see her in person,
Right.
and she should be transferred. So that's what ended up happening. So she was transferred to CHOP, which she was there for another like 14 days or so.
Wow.
Yeah, so she didn't, well, maybe 12. She wasn't home until like 24 days after she was born.
Oh.
So, um, so yeah, so the biggest things for her were just the macroglossia and the hypoglycemia. After she was discharged in the NICU at CHOP because of her apnea, improving, she was on the endocrine floor for a little while, and she did like a diagnostic fast.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
Awful. Did Owen do that?
So he was kind of a similar situation. I had him at the hospital I work at, and they contacted CHOP, and CHOP was like, no, like, we want you to transfer him. And they were like, no, we kind of have him under control. And so they
Yeah,
ended up discharging us. Um,
right.
and they were going to do it as like an outpatient thing.
Hmm.
And Dr. Kaler said, well, if you're going to keep him, I want you to do the fast. And they
Hmm.
wouldn't do it. They were like, we're
Well,
not,
because they can't. They're not.
yeah, they're like, we're not comfortable doing it.
Right.
So she was like, well, then I would prefer that you transfer him to us. And they were like, no, well, he's good. So there was like a little bit of like tension with that. So we wound up being able to take him home I think maybe 3 days after he was born. But I
Hmm.
don't think he would have gone home that early if we got transferred to CHOP.
Yeah, I agree. You probably, I mean, they did like everything imaginable.
Yeah.
They did, they did a sleep study. It came back, she was having like 100 central apneas an hour
Oh my
on
God.
top of her obstructive, because just, the
Yeah.
centrals are just because of her prematurity,
Right.
then the obstructive, obviously, because of her tongue.
Yeah.
But and then the hypoglycemia, like endocrine has like a whole nother standard for what they think is appropriate blood sugars. Like the hospital was saying 60, endocrine was like less than 80. Like we're not okay with that.
Right.
So it took her a while to get there.
Yeah.
Um, and we didn't see any hemihypertrophy initially, but I'm starting to see that now.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I see like and a leg length discrepancy too,
Hmm.
because I'm like a PT, so I'm like,
Oh,
like
yeah, that's perfect then.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't work with children. I'm not a pediatric physical therapist, but by any
Yeah.
means. But yeah. So those are kind of like her ongoing. Those are her issues. I mean, I'm trying to think of what else. Um,
So
when she
how old is
first
she now?
how what?
How old is she now?
She's 7. She's 7 months.
Okay.
Initially, when she first came home, she was having a lot of like choking issues, like really scary. I
Yeah.
mean, they said that her suck swallow was pretty good, but I could tell like her rhythm still wasn't like great. So she would choke all the time. I think the first 2 months of her life, I literally had to hold her to sleep because I would feed her and I would hold her up for like an hour and a half because my son had reflux too and whatever. So I would hold her up for an hour and a half, and literally as soon as I would put her down, she would start choking, like hardcore choking, like
Yeah.
scary choking. Um, and probably dropping into the 60s, like doing that. So for the first 2 months of her life, like I literally did not sleep because I was just
Yeah.
constantly
Yeah.
holding her up because every time I let her lay down, she would choke. Um, but I don't really know if that, I don't know if that was a BWS thing or just, I don't know. So
Did they say that they want to reduce the size of her tongue?
Yes, so she's actually scheduled for surgery with Dr. Taylor July 31st.
Oh,
Um, they actually called me yesterday and was like, "So we have a cancellation. Do you want to do it July 8th?" And I was like, "A week from now? No, I'm not, like I'm mentally prepared for July 31st, but I don't think that I'd be able to jump on that train
mm-mm.
in a
No.
week." So yeah, I mean, her tongue's pretty large.
Yeah.
And it's she's starting to pull it in more into her mouth more, but if she's not consciously doing it, I mean it's literally out, it's out of her mouth.
Yeah.
So I guess my thoughts are, well, I know the tongue reduction surgery is going to be awful, but
Yeah, it's hard.
yeah, but as a physical therapist, I'm just thinking like, okay, leg length discrepancy wise, like I don't really know, there isn't much information about like how, at what point would they do surgery? Because
Right.
you follow the Facebook groups and you see how some children actually do get
Yeah.
surgery, like orthopedic surgery for their leg length discrepancies. You know if it was just hemihypertrophy and like one side was bigger than the other, then that's like one thing. But when
Right.
there's a leg length, it's like, okay, that affects your pelvis, that affects so many different things. It's like your body's like a kinematic chain. So like my thoughts are like, is she ever going to need surgery? How is that going to affect her in her adolescence, in her adulthood, as far as her back pain and like,
Right.
and just, so those are kind of like the thoughts, that are running through my head.
And did they tell you to wait until she kind of starts to walk to see the orthopedic guys?
Basic. Yeah. Yeah. Um, and I guess, that for the most part, that makes sense. But I
Yeah.
would like, when she's about to start walking, I don't know. I kind of would want either a physical therapist that does peds or an orthopedic doctor to take a look at her, before
Mhm.
she starts walking consistently, just to make sure that she has the proper footwear, and
Right.
stuff like that.
What we did was because Owen's the same way. He has hemihypertrophy on the right side, and he also has the leg length
Hmm.
discrepancy. His is pretty. It's a pretty big difference. Um,
Right.
they didn't really measure it in the beginning because he wasn't walking, but now
Hmm.
he's like running. So we're taking him. I think the end of July. He's going to see orthopedics. So I'll have more information for you. But we did early intervention physical therapy and
Hmm.
occupational therapy, and so they worked with him before he was walking.
Right.
And then like pretty much right up until when he was walking, which was good because then you see your baby every day,
Hmm.
but when you have someone that only sees them once or twice a week, they can come
Right.
and be like, oh wow, that really does look a lot different. Whereas for you, you
Hmm.
see it every day, you kind of are like, oh,
Hmm.
it looks the same to me. Um,
Hmm.
so that would be good for you to try and have her into that because that was helpful for me at least to have like a second set of eyes almost.
Right. Right.
And so then I can kind of remember what they said and take that to his appointment. and kind of
Mm-hmm.
go from there. And I don't know what they're going to say if he's going to need a lift. I feel like he does because I mean he trips all the time.
Yeah.
Which I mean kids fall anyway, but um, I can tell like his whole like alignment is completely off.
Right. Right. Right.
So yeah, I'll have more information for you once I take him.
Yeah. That would be great. Yeah, because that's like one of the things that I worry about with
Yeah.
just like back pain and I don't. But anyway, so yeah, I'm trying to think what else was part of her journey. So she's had 3 sleep studies. So her central apneas haven't had improved early on. So now she's about moderate. She has about 14 apneic events, an hour.
Okay.
She's supposed to wear nasal cannula
Supposed
with
to. Yeah.
supposed to.
She's not leaving
Um,
the
can't say that.
no.
um, I mean, just apnea alone wakes you up, so like she's not a great sleeper. So, you know, we've tried it and she just wakes up. She has like this huge bald spot in the back of her head from just like thrashing around like this
Oh.
constantly. So, Dr. Cielo was like, well, I'm glad you're getting the surgery, or I'm glad we're at the point that, she can be considered for surgery because if she wasn't, then I would say we would need to really force the CPAP on her. And I was like, I can't even get her to wear nasal cannula, let alone CPAP. Like, that's crazy.
I know.
So,
Oh.
so I don't know. Did you guys did Owen have oxygen after surgery at home for a while?
So he didn't actually,
Okay.
which yeah, no, he didn't. I mean, I had the Owlet sock, like pulse
Yeah.
oximeter, so I
Yeah.
kept that on him for a while. And honestly, until he grew out of it, which was quickly. Like they don't really.
Yeah.
I contacted them. I'm like, there is this little tiny group of people that have this problem, and they need bigger socks for this thing. But he was fine like afterwards. But now, like with the choking and stuff, his tongue has grown since his
Mm-hmm.
surgery because his surgery he was only 7 weeks old. Um,
Right.
he was really little.
Wow.
So
It's
we
little.
actually, yeah, we just saw Dr. Taylor last week because I
Mm-hmm.
was like, all right, I just want him to look at his mouth because all of his bottom teeth are like forward towards his
Yeah.
lip. So I
Right.
was like, I just want him to look and like. So he looked at him and he was like, I do think that his tongue has grown and that it is really really thick and bulky. He was like, we'll reassess in a year, and then go from there because he took over 2 inches from Owen's
Right.
tongue. It was
Wow.
huge in
Yeah.
the beginning, but
Yeah.
so I didn't have any issues with oxygen afterwards, but now sometimes I'll hear him cough at night, and I'm like,
Yeah.
like I wonder if he's obstructing, and I just don't know.
Right.
So I don't know. Do you think?
Did
Did they
they
say?
say? Did
Did
they
they?
say what?
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
You go first.
So Dr. Cielo told me that most likely after surgery, she should still wear the oxygen for some time
Hmm.
because of the swelling and all of that post-operatively.
Okay. How long did they
So
tell you you'll be in the hospital for?
approximately 2 weeks, which sounds
Oh,
about right,
okay. Yeah.
right?
So, yeah, Owen was in for I wasn't sure if it would be different from him since
Hmm.
she's not like a whole lot older than he was, but she's a couple months older than he was.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I think all in all it was like 10 days. I
Hmm.
do think that he would have been in there longer if I wasn't kind of
I read that on
pushing
your
some of
blog.
the
Yeah.
yeah, I was pushing some of the things because I just knew he could do it, and I
Hmm.
just knew that he like wanted to eat, and they're doing their job, they're being like super careful, but he was getting frustrated because he was so hungry and all he wanted was his bottle. Like
Yeah.
I was lucky. My experience with him and with pain is like he just wanted his food. Like his hungry
Hmm.
belly bothered him more
Right.
than his tongue. So for me, I was like, look, just give it to him. Like, and so I think if I would have kind of just let them continue to be a little more slow about it, we would have been in there for a little longer. But I mean,
Hmm.
you'll know what to do once you're with
Yeah.
her, and you'll be able to see how she reacts and
Right.
how
Right.
she
Right.
does. So
Yeah. Um, yeah, so we have that coming up. And then he said he would want to see her for another sleep study afterwards. They do another one
Hmm.
after. Yeah, so like we've had three already.
They're so
Um,
hard.
two of them I left at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 3 a.m. because I was like, well, first of all, I haven't slept in like 2 years because my sons, they're like 13 months apart. So,
Yeah.
um, and I'm like, I can't, she was angry, like
Yeah.
super, super angry. I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
I mean, they were like, they could barely get the stuff on her. And then when they did, I was literally holding her and then I couldn't even put her down. And
Yeah.
then they were like, well, why don't you try and feed her? And I'm like, okay, I'll try and feed her, but she's going to need to burp. She chokes like after she's
Yeah.
done eating. I have to hold her up for an hour and a half. And then I would hold her up and they would come and they're like, you really kind of need to put her down. And I'm like, that's fine. I'll try putting her down, but like, it's not going to last. Right.
Yeah.
So I would put her down and then she would freak out again and it would be like this whole big thing. And then by that time it was like she would sleep for 2 hours only
Yep.
from being there at 6 p.m. And
Oh.
then at 3 a.m. I was like, I have to be able to drive home. Like, so if you have what you have, like you have 2 hours, I think that's enough to tell you whether or not she has apnea or not. So then
Yeah.
then I kind of
I
just
wish I
left.
would have done that. Oh my gosh, they were
Yeah,
miserable.
I was like, it doesn't, I'm like, you have 2 hours worth of sleep, and I don't see how you having 6 hours of sleep is really going to be any different, So I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm going to have to call it. So I called it twice. I was like, if we're going to have to do the whole thing, my husband's going to have to come with me because she literally was
Yeah, you need
irate the
reinforcement.
whole time.
Yeah.
Um, and then she has to get another diagnostic fasting test on, she's not going to be happy about that.
Oh my God, that's my biggest I am so
Do you
stressed
have to do
out.
that?
He has to, just for the ultrasounds, he has to fast.
Oh, yeah,
So, I mean, and he's on, I mean, he drinks milk, but he's on like all sorts of food now. And I mean, the second he wakes up, he's running for the fridge. So I'm like, I need to I make the ultrasound super early in the morning at like 7:30, and then I try to
yeah,
sneak in there in the middle of the night and feed him a bottle, but still, like the whole car ride down, he's flipping out. The whole time
yeah,
that he's laying on me, he's ripping the ultras. It's miserable. I'm like, people don't really understand, like,
yeah.
telling
It's
these
tough scheduling.
that they
Yeah,
can't eat. Like,
yeah, it's tough like scheduling her ultrasounds too. Thankfully, like it hasn't been that bad.
yeah.
But she's only had two. I'm hoping maybe they can do her next one inpatient while she's actually because she's
That's,
actually due for one during that time. So I'm like, can you guys just like do the
yes.
ultrasound while she's inpatient and draw her AFP and just like be done with it?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so she has to get another diagnostic fast at the end of September. So they said that it would probably be um, more than a 20-hour fast.
Oh
Um,
my God. You
yeah,
can't have
so
anything, like no Pedialyte, no nothing.
they will probably allow her to drink. I don't know. When she was an infant, they did an 18-hour fast, and that was say she basically drank saline water
Oh.
um, every 3 hours. I don't know how she survived that, but she did.
Oh.
That was it was an 18-hour fast. By the time they draw all their labs, they had to go through her artery for blood because, they needed so much blood that a vein wasn't enough. I mean, by the time everything finished up, it was probably about 20 hours. And so the endocrinologist said that this time it's going to be even longer.
Oh God.
But I guess since she's older, the 12 hours isn't like that bad. So I don't know. It's
Did
20
she
hours is a long
cry and
time.
scream the whole entire time?
Well, I'm sorry.
Did she just cry and scream the whole entire time?
She didn't because I guess she was so little that like
Yeah.
she was just chugging saline water and I don't think she really knew, it
Right.
was like her belly was full. But I
Right.
mean, towards the end, it was bad because her sugar was like tanking into the 50s and stuff like that.
Oh, that's so scary.
Yeah, but so that's the story with her. I mean, I would say that I mean, 'cause things that I kind of like think about, like we're really fortunate she didn't have an omphalocele. Owen didn't have one, did he?
No, thank God,
Yeah.
no.
So like I feel like it was better for me prenatally that I didn't know that she had BWS because I was like bawling my eyes out when I found out that I was pregnant when my son
Yeah.
was 5 months old because I was like, I'm not ready for this. And like, I really want my time with him. So if
Yeah.
I had known that she had BWS beforehand, I feel like I wouldn't have been able to enjoy the rest of my time with my son being my only, being an only child for that period of time. But, um, you know, I guess my thoughts. I did watch that one segment with the guy Chris. I guess is it
Yeah,
Chris?
yeah.
He's an adult, yeah.
Hmm.
And just him like talking about how much his parents made a difference for him. And that's kind of like where my mind is at now. Like aside from the fact that she has a cancer risk, and aside from the fact that every 3 months we're doing that screening and that blood work, and it's just like kind of like nerve wracking.
Yeah.
I guess the things I think about are one, she's a girl,
Hmm.
and I feel like, body image and self image in this day and age with women and girls and adolescents are difficult to begin with when you're a normal, healthy baby. And the fact that she's a girl, I mean, she's big. I mean,
Yeah.
she's 20 pounds. She's 7 pounds lighter than my 20-month-old, and that's it.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
like when we put them next to each other, like her head is like bigger than his. Like she's gonna be, she's gonna be a
yeah.
big.
Yeah.
Just thinking about that and like as a mother, like how I'm going to, you know, how I'm going to encourage her and create just a level of confidence in her and,
Yeah.
um, you know, so that you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying. Yeah. It's
Yeah, like
hard. It's hard.
Yeah, and just I think about like when am I gonna tell her she has BW, like tell her when she has BWS.
Right.
Just thinking about things like that. I'm like thinking like, okay, so I mean, I'm not around. I guess they grow out of their skins at like 8 years old, right? So I haven't been around a lot of 8 year olds lately. But I'm just thinking like, I don't know. It's just like thank God it's 8. If it were any later than that, I'd be like, if your parent told you you had BWS, like you could just go online and like Google what BWS is and then
Right.
be like, oh my gosh, I am like at an increased risk for cancer. Like, and
Yeah.
then, having that burden as a child is just, or as a teen, is like so much. But, I don't know, these are the kind of thoughts that go through my head when I'm thinking about our future. Um,
I
but
think what is going to be really good for you, we have coming up, I'll have to check. I think it's in August. Um, Bree, I can't say her last name, but
oh, yeah,
have you connected with her?
yeah, yeah. Well,
She
I've,
has,
yeah,
yeah, she has BWS herself, and she's going to
right.
do one of these. And she said, um, she had those struggles as a teenage girl with
Hmm.
BWS. So she's like the nicest human ever on the face of the planet. So she's going to be so good, I think, for you to listen to and everyone else, just because she can speak to what you're worried your daughter might feel.
Right, right.
And like she can give you insight on how her mom handled it, and
Hmm.
because I know I feel for, and this isn't pity, it's just I I don't know, I feel like it's so much harder to be the mother of a BWS daughter for the reasons that you said.
Right, right,
Like
right.
it's really, I'm like, okay, well, Owen's huge. I mean, Owen's 33 pounds and he's 16 months old. He's huge.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's really not as big of a deal for boys to be big. I know that, it sounds bad, but I mean, that's just the society that we live in. I mean, and
Right.
I doubt Owen's going to be trying to wear a cute pair of skinny jeans. Like, he can just wear like
Hmm.
whatever. Like I feel like girls face a little bit more challenges. So, um, you're probably going to handle it much better than you think right now that you're going
Hopefully.
to handle it. Yeah.
Hopefully. And I think, and it's good that like, we're a family of faith. So like that has been, a mainstay for us.
Yeah.
I don't, you know, that's been like the most important thing. So at least I at least I have guidance there. I
Right.
never feel alone
Good.
in that, but just things that that go through my mind. I'm like, is she gonna be able to wear heels? Like, and her belly really is large.
Yeah.
It's really large, and it was measuring 3 to 4 weeks in advance when she was in utero, and it's still that way. Like her belly is
Right.
large, and I'm like, well, I mean, I actually don't even put her in pants. Because the elastic seems like so tight around her belly that I have her in rompers only because that way it doesn't create that pressure
Right.
um, in her stomach, on her stomach. So I'm just thinking like how, just as a woman, like I just wonder how that's gonna, play out. But I can't really think too far about that. But I just pray that she, um, and I don't know, and just like thinking about her tongue, and I think you're kind of like in that hard spot because like Owen's right at that age where he's eating like everything and like speech is like right around the corner,
Yeah.
for him and it's like I don't know, I guess you said Dr. Taylor's going to wait another year to
Yeah,
see.
he was like, I've done he was like, I'm usually pretty good at judging on how much to take off. He was like, and the only reason why I say to wait another year is because his concern is that if his with like back with the way that some of them explain it to me is that like some parts grow quicker and then the other parts kind of catch up.
Yeah.
You notice that with his hemi on his right side? Like there will be times I look at him, and when he's in a major growth spurt, his right side is huge compared to
Mhm.
the left, and then the left will catch up, and then it's not as bad. So
Right.
he was like, I would feel horrible if I reduced it now
That's too
again.
much.
Yeah, and then like I basically maim him. Like he's like, I can't really give it back. And he's
Yeah.
like, he was like, I'm watching his teeth. I'm, keeping an eye on it. So part of me, I don't know how to feel about it because
Mhm.
I'm like, oh man, like I don't want to go through it again. It was hard, like it was harder on me than it was on him, to be
Mhm.
honest. Like, and kids are so resilient. I think, they for him, he was just like, just get me out of here and give me my food.
Right. Right.
But I am wondering how it's going to go this time because he's older. He's like more conscious about it. So I don't know. Like I wouldn't want it to go to where he's like 4 or 5. Like if we
Right.
were going to make a
Yeah.
decision, I would want it to be made like next year
Yeah.
for sure. Because we're already like he's already in speech therapy and he's already. I wouldn't say he's behind because he's only 16 months old, but he doesn't. He very rarely says "mama" because that
Mhm.
he needs to close his whole mouth. And
Mhm.
if I show him and I'm like, oh, and do this, like he'll do it, but he doesn't get that like that's what he has to do to say "mama."
Right. Right.
So I feel like we could accomplish so much, and then he needs to redo it all if he has a different tongue to work with.
Mhm. Mhm.
But at the same time, I also see his face, and I'm like, I just feel like his face is changing to try and fit it.
And that's how I feel about gray seats too. I was telling my husband the other day, like, I can't, I can barely even see her gums to see if she's teething. I mean, she is like chomping on her hands, like hardcore. And when
Oh,
I go to like lift up like this part of her mouth, her gums are so far up. Like she has a high palate too.
mm-hmm.
It's like there's not enough like I'm wondering if like I need to get an orthodontic like consult just to
Oh,
see how
maybe.
jaw is. I don't know. And that's why when I saw the itinerary for the BWS conference, like leg length and hemi hypertrophy, that really interested me. And then
Mm-hmm.
the dentist on the jaw,
Yeah.
the lecture on that, because I can already tell, like, and it's almost like her and Owen look so similar in a
In the
lot of
cheek.
BWS because of the cheeks. Like,
Yep.
when she pulls her tongue in, her cheeks grow like, like,
I know.
and I just feel like something's like up with like her palate. I don't know. I mean, she does have a high palate, which Dr. Taylor said, was actually helpful to her because her tongue's pretty large. I mean, he's like, this is a pretty large tongue, and I feel like when I look at your pictures of Owen, I think maybe the only reason why she didn't need one right away was the fact that her palate was higher.
Okay.
And he said that probably allowed her more room.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes sense.
yeah, but it's like I can't even when I lift up the top of her mouth, like it's like her mouth is like connected to her gums in a way that I could barely see.
Oh,
I don't know, weird. So I'm wondering if I need to like, you know, get an orthodontic.
yeah,
I guess I'll ask her Taylor
because
when she has her surgery.
yeah,
But
because
then
that's
I'm
my
like,
fear. I'm like,
then
I
hearing
don't want
Chris's
to have
story
that.
about like the
I
whole
know.
jaw reconstructive surgery and like all that. I don't
I
know.
know. I was like, I can't
But
have it. I can't have Owen go through that. I would not. I wouldn't survive.
I know. God bless his parents.
I know. And they're all going to be there at the CHOP conference too. I'm super excited to meet them
Oh,
all.
that's cool.
Yeah, they're going to
Yeah,
be there.
that's cool.
So, yeah, it's just crazy. Like, I know, and it's funny, like, I do look at your daughter and all, like, the other kids, and I'm like, they really do look very similar. And,
They do.
like,
I mean, I know
McKen,
there's like no syndromal feature of BWS necessarily, other than like, the stork bites and stuff. Because Dr. Kayla shoot, I'd be like, well, do they like look the same? And she would show me pictures of like adolescent, and she's
yeah,
like, do they look like they have BWS? And I'm like, not really. And she's
yeah,
like, exactly. And I'm like, I know, but like all the infants look the same.
they definitely do. I never really thought that until Mackenzie was someone that I met on the main page, and she came for tongue reduction, and she actually came to. I reached out to her. We had like beers at my house, and when she was in for a follow-up visit, her whole family was with her, and we had Owen and her daughter sitting side by side, and I was like, oh my God, they look alike.
Yeah.
But
And
like if
I've
I
seen
see the
pictures of BWS children on Instagram, and I swear there was this one where I was like, how did they get Gracie's picture? And I like looked at it and I was like, that's not even her. That's like,
yeah,
that's someone else's baby, but it looks just like her.
it's so crazy.
But yeah, so that and so there's a lot of stuff coming up for
Yeah,
her.
the first year's hard.
Yeah.
Years.
Yeah. So um I don't know, just a crazy journey.
Well, especially because you have your son, who's not that much
Yeah.
older.
That, and that's the thing. It's like um that was like another thing. Like that was another thing that I felt like emotionally I was going through was like the fact that like okay, not only was I initially like felt like I wasn't prepared to have like I mean, I was already just freaking out about the fact of having like two kids under like,
Yeah,
under two and being like 15 months apart, which is what they were supposed to be, but ended up being 13 months apart.
right.
Um, and then when I found that out, I was like, oh my gosh, like
Yeah,
how am I gonna, and if it wasn't, they say it takes a village and it really does. If it wasn't for like family,
yeah,
uh, I don't know how we would have made through like the first 3 months, honestly,
yeah,
because, after she gets discharged from the hospital, she had like a million follow-up appointments at CHOP um, I felt like every time I left to go see her, I was like abandoning my son. And
oh,
sure, what that feels like when, I remember
yeah,
reading in the blog that like you felt that way um,
yeah, I do.
when you were with Owen for tongue reduction surgery. But the good thing is, I mean, so far she, there's so many things that she initially had that I mean, her hyperinsulinism, she's never been medicated for it. Um,
That's good.
I'm checking her sugars like not like twice a day, and they've been fine. And I know it could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
But
Do you know what type she has?
so she has loss of methylation IC2
Oh,
region. I don't know if that sounds familiar to you. I know she doesn't have the CK ND. That's not that one. Um,
awesome. Is that, I'm trying to, because the way you describe her, she sounds just like Owen. So I'm like, oh, but he had, I don't know if that's the same one. He has the UPD type.
she never mentioned that. She
Okay, so
said
then,
that it's like that's the uniparental di.
yes, that's the one he has.
And what does that one mean again? I don't. I have to look.
Basically, the way I understand it is he, instead of getting like an off, like for the grow gene, instead of getting like an off switch and an on switch, one he would get from me, one he would get from Mike, he got two on switches and no off switch.
Oh, okay. So the yeah,
So,
so it's one of those. I don't the way she described it, I, yeah, maybe that's the same one then. I don't know. She said loss of methylation at IC2 region, so it probably
I wonder.
translates into what, but I don't know. She didn't say the UP. Mm.
I don't. Where Mackenzie? Are
But I
you
have the
here?
coloring book.
Yeah, we'll have to pull that out and compare.
Yeah, but she doesn't have the CK.
D1 or
Yeah,
whatever that one is. Yeah, there's a
right. Right.
few of them. What do you think the hardest part is with like her interaction with strangers and stuff like that? Do you?
Funny. It's funny you mention that.
Yeah.
So I, I honestly typically am not. I don't. I don't really get upset if people stare or if they make comments. I I don't know. I feel like mm, I you know no one's ever really like said anything other than what I felt like was innocent. So a lot of children, like we have a lot of friends that have children, and they'll be like, "Why is she sticking her tongue out?" And like it's just
Yeah.
innocent. Children have no clue. They're just so it doesn't really necessarily bother me. No stranger has ever really come up to me to say anything. They'll say, "Oh my gosh, she's so cute. Look at her. Look at those thighs." And then she's
Yeah.
like, and then they'll be like, she's sticking out her tongue, like just saying things like that. And that doesn't necessarily bother me because I don't see it coming from a bad place.
Right.
Um, but so on Saturday, we took her to the ER, which I already told you this story, I
Yeah.
think. I took her to the ER because she woke up from her nap, high fever. She was vomiting. She wouldn't
Oh.
drink her bottle. I couldn't get her to keep Tylenol down. And I was like, well, the last time she ate was at 10 a.m. It's now 3 p.m. And she threw up everything from before and she's not eating now.
Oh.
Um, so I just, with her hyperinsulinism and everything else, I was just like, you know what, I'm just take her to the ER so that way they can give her IV fluids and give her a Tylenol suppository because I have no way of bringing this fever down. And she was like, she looked gray and
Oh God, that's
she was like lethargic. She was like falling asleep in my arms every 5 minutes. And she is not that kind of baby. She is a put me in my room, put me in my crib. I don't fall asleep when you rock me. I mean, I sleep trained her that way, but
that's how
so
Owen
like,
is. That's so fun.
yeah, her wanting to sleep on me, I was like, something is not right. So we took her to the ER and I did tell the nurse, when she was getting her past medical history, I was like, she has BWS. You've probably never heard of it, but it's called Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome. So she types it into the computer and it pops up and it's there. And so she clicks on it. And then so the PA, I don't know if I told you this part though. Oh, well, maybe I did.
Oh, I think you might have.
Oh yeah. So the PA like shows up to the room and he's like, "Oh, hi." And then he looks at her and she's in her car seat and he looks at her and he goes, "What's with the tongue?" Like just like that. Like I could see myself.
Oh,
And he's like, "What's with the tongue?" And I'm like, and I just laughed because I just like didn't even know how to react. But I'm like, and I probably wouldn't care if I wasn't a healthcare professional, but I think I expect more from someone
exactly.
who's a healthcare professional. So I was really shocked when he was like, "What's with the tongue?" Like, not like, tell me more about the tongue or tell me about her past medical history or
Yeah.
I saw that she has Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome. I'm not familiar with that.
Could you
Um,
imagine if like an amputee was sitting there and you're like, "What's with the arm?"
I know, I
Like,
know. So that's like the only time that like on the inside I like kind of cringed a little and I was like, did you just ask me what's with the tongue? Like not even her tongue, what's with the tongue?
God.
I was like, well, she has a genetic disorder that you probably have never heard of.
Oh my God.
So that, I mean, that's like the only encounter that I've had that I like, my like mama bear kind of like came out,
Oh
and I didn't
yeah.
even really let it show. I laughed because I couldn't believe like that he said it that way.
Yeah, you're in shock. You're like, "What's wrong with you?"
But I mean, for the most part, so far, I haven't really experienced
That's good.
anything. Yeah. I don't
Good.
know if you felt any different, but.
I always had like the innocent things in the beginning when before his tongue reduction, because I mean his tongue was so big you didn't even know he had a mouth under there. Like
Mm.
it was like all down here. It was his whole entire thing. And people, oh, he's so cute. Look at him sticking his tongue out. And like I knew, like you said, it wasn't coming from a bad place, but at the same time, I'm like, oh my God, like that's all they noticed. I'm like, this poor
Mhm.
kid. And then the very first, like, I had a similar situation before tongue reduction at the pediatrician's office where a nurse said, same thing. What's the deal with the tongue? And my husband actually looked at me and like gave me a look like, Teresa, just let it go. But I was like,
Yeah.
oh. So that time I let it go. And then post surgery, they have stitches for a while, and the
Yeah.
stitches look like they don't really look like stitches. They kind of look like yellow and just like
Yeah.
real weird. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm like, if you don't know like what that is, like if I saw a baby and I was kind of like, what's in their mouth? Like I would keep it to myself and like
Mhm.
just not say anything.
Right.
This woman did the total stranger did the classic, like, if you're carrying your kid and they think it's cold outside, oh, aren't you cold? Like that type of thing. Like they should have a
Mhm.
jacket on. So she like went up to him. She's like, "Oh, you're so cute, but mommy couldn't even get a towel and wipe the throw up out of your mouth." It's like, oh my God. I kind of felt like I was gonna do like, where my head spins. I was like, actually,
I
and
can't
my
believe.
husband was near me too, and he was just like, "Oh God!" Like I think he was like just like wanting to die. And I was like, "Actually, that's not throw up in his mouth." I was like, "He just had 2 inches of his tongue taken out, actually." And I almost felt bad because she felt so bad, but
Yeah.
just like you need to be aware of what's coming out of your mouth. Like how
Yeah.
rude you
And
just got. Like
even if that was throw up,
right.
I mean, just why is it any of your business, right? To say anything at all.
Yeah, like I was just like,
That's how
oh
I feel about it.
no.
It's like even if somebody, you know,
Right.
um,
I was floored. I was just like, yeah, he had 2 inches of his tongue. That's stitches, actually. And then, like, she kind of like I used it as a teaching tool, kind of. But I was so
yeah,
angry. I was just like, how dare you, like, kind of make me feel like I'm not doing my job and I'm just like bring my kid in public all out
yeah,
like a mess. And
yeah.
really, like, he just got out of the hospital.
Hmm.
So I've had that, and then I've had a couple kids like that are older because Owen looks so much older, and acts so much older. I've had kids that are like 3 or 4, kind of like point at him and stuff like that. Like when it comes to his tongue, and it's interesting because my 4-year-old, he doesn't. I don't know if part of that is because he's kind of like oblivious, but he also is like, why are they pointing at Owen? And I'm just like, I don't know, buddy. Some kids are not that nice, whatever.
Hmm.
Um, so I wonder how it'll be as he gets older, but I mean,
Yeah. I
it's
mean, and that, I think Gracie, she's like an infant, so I feel like,
yeah.
I don't know, I feel like it's a little bit different, because I
Yeah,
feel like kids that are, walking and stuff, like they pay more attention to my
yeah,
son than they do her.
right.
Um, so she hasn't really gotten any of that yet, and she's supposed to get her tongue reduced soon. So, I mean, I don't know if it'll grow back. It may. So she might go through the same thing. But yeah, I hear that.
Hoping for you that she doesn't. It's not apparently it's not that common for that to happen. But
Really? I don't know. I always assumed that it would because I'm like, well, your whole body grows with you. Like, I don't know how. It never made sense to me that it wouldn't. And I was
right.
like, oh, it's a possibility that it doesn't. I don't know. I just assumed that
Yeah.
it would. But then, yeah, then I heard that, I think Dr. Taylor was like, I might have done like two or three, like
Yeah.
additional ones.
That's what he
Uh,
told me. So I'm hoping, I'm like, hopefully, like, but it's just kind of like in my mom, like, gut that I'm like, mm-mm.
you
Like,
feel like,
yeah, and like his hemihypertrophy affects the right side of his tongue too. In the back though. And I only noticed it when he started to eat solid foods.
yeah,
Um, everything would keep going to the left and kind of like if food would fall out, it would fall out of the left side of his mouth. And I'm like, why is it doing that? And he would almost like roll it like roll the right side of his tongue to the left so that because there wasn't any room in there. So if
Mm,
I like put food on that side, it was like he didn't know what to do
no.
with it, so he would
Yeah.
put it down to the side. Um,
Yeah.
so I don't know, and like even Dr. Taylor's face kind of when he saw him, he was like, "All right, it is like it's very bulky. Like he took a good amount of the length off, and he did debulk a lot of it, but I don't know. Owen's a bulky boy. Like
Yeah,
even
I mean, Dr. Taylor was like, her tongue is like really thick. Like he's like, I could change the width and I can change the length, but I'm not going to be able to like change, like, change how
yeah,
like how thick it is. Like it's just going to be,
yeah,
thick, but you probably won't notice it if it's like in her mouth.
right,
Um, but we'll we'll
yeah.
see.
She's gonna do good. It's gonna be hard, but
Yeah.
I think
And
the
there's like so many transitions too right now. I mean, I feel like so like she just started rolling, so she's been in the Dakatot.
whoa, really? That's
Yeah.
awesome.
What's that?
She stays in that thing, the
She
DocuTag.
stays. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So she's actually, so I have to stop this week actually, but she just started like rolling. Just because like mentally I felt like strength wise she's awesome. She's always loved tummy time. She's very strong. So she was good like strength wise, motor wise. I knew she could roll. It was just mentally she didn't have the motivation to like
Right.
roll. So now she's catching up like mentally and she's starting to roll and I'm like, man, like she's swaddled in the Dakatot
Oh God.
in the crib.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of work ahead of me, and she's constantly hands in her mouth, like scratching her head. Like if she gets her hand out of a swaddle, like her whole head's like
Yeah.
bloody. Like
Oh.
so, I have a lot to do, and I'm like, I feel like I have to do this before she goes for surgery because then that'll be like a whole nother thing that she's gonna have to get used to. Like, I don't want her
Yeah.
to be like her entire world to be rocked.
That's the
Because
one thing.
now I put her down awake, like I just swaddle her and put her in
Right.
the dock cot and she like fusses and then she falls asleep on her own. Like I don't rock her or anything like that, but I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to.
That was the hard part with having Owen home and like he was adjusted to I mean he was only 7 weeks old, but he adjusted really quick to just like being home and our routine and then taking him to the hospital and it was like
Mm.
totally not his routine. For him, he never liked to be swaddled. He always is like sprawled out on the bed all over the place. And that's the only thing they had to come up with like a specialized swaddle for him because he
Hmm.
would keep breaking out. He would keep breaking
Yeah,
out of it.
I've bought a lot of swaddles to figure out which ones she can't break out of.
Yeah, and he would try and get the tube, the ventilator tube out of
Yeah,
his nose,
yeah.
and they had it sutured onto his one nostril, and when they extubated him, they went to cut it, and it was like already ripped. I'm like, yeah, he took care of it, but so that is hard, the adjustment, and if she's like feisty,
She's very feisty.
that's a BWS thing, I swear.
I mean, she's a very happy, happy baby. Like she's
Yes,
super smiley and like so happy regardless of like whatever. But yeah, she's pretty feisty.
it's so funny. Everybody, there's
I
I
mean, they have to be, right?
yeah, they do. They have to
They
be.
go through all this stuff, and that's why like when we went to the ER on Saturday, my husband's like, "Oh, I don't want her to get stuck." But I'm like, "This is why we're here. Like, we're here because she needs IV fluids and she needs to get blood work done." I was like, "She's been through much worse than this. This is not even going to be a
Yeah,
problem." She cried for like 2 seconds, like
yeah,
once when they stuck her, and then everything else was like fine. I'm like, she's been through way worse than this.
right.
And I'm glad that like I've seen her go through certain things so that way like I'm not so like too
Yeah,
protective of her when she needs to
right.
get I mean I had to step out after her diagnostic fast
Yeah.
and they were trying to get her artery like that. I
No.
couldn't handle that after they tried once twice they couldn't get it. I was like, all right, I gotta go before I rip somebody's house.
Yeah. Yes.
So I'm like, I'm gonna go get some dinner.
Yeah.
um
Oh,
but
that's
yeah,
like
but she's feisty.
yeah. I
Yeah.
had a similar situation with that when we had to take him emergently to the hospital for pneumonia.
Mm.
Um, you know, and he never complains. I think I was telling you we find out he has ear infections by accident, which I feel horrible
Yeah.
about.
She,
But
which
I'm like,
she's, which is what I guess she had one. Where she's on antibiotics.
yeah.
Oh,
But they
yeah.
never know. It's like we'll take him to get shots, and they're like, let's just look in his ears, and they're like, he has a raging ear infection. I'm like, I swear I mean, he doesn't act like
Yeah.
he
She
does.
didn't complain at all about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I came home from being at work in the middle of the night, and he woke up like coughing, and he always has upper respiratory stuff. I don't know if you'll notice that once her tongue is smaller,
Hmm.
but he always is just like super congested all over the place. And they never take me seriously, and then it usually progresses because he can't clear anything. So when I came home, we were supposed to take him to CHOP for an ultrasound, and so I was like, I'm just going to stay awake. I have to be up in an hour. He was coughing, and he was coughing so loud that he woke my husband up. So my husband and I both went into the room with him, and he like vomited everywhere. So we picked him up, we put him in the bathtub, and he was doing like what you said your daughter was doing, kind of just like swaying and
Yeah.
really just like lethargic. And I'm like, oh, this isn't him at all. If he's not reacting to anything or doing anything, like we need to go.
Hmm.
So I took him, and I was like, I don't think I could take him. I probably should have called an ambulance, but I was like so sleep deprived,
Yeah.
like I need to
Yeah.
that. I just went to the local hospital. I didn't take him to CHOP, and they were like, yeah, we think he has pneumonia. His SATs were real crappy. Um, but by the time we got to CHOP, and they were doing everything they needed to do. It was like midday. I think I took him to St. Mary's at like maybe 6 a.m. We didn't get to check
Hmm.
until like 3 p.m. So this whole
Hmm.
entire time he's not eating. He's exhausted, doesn't feel good. He's ripped an IV out. So they're like, we need to get another IV in him. And I was just like, I can't, I don't know how much longer I can do this. And I
Hmm.
told the nurses, I'm like, my husband was with me at this point. I'm like, this isn't my husband, me, and you is not going to be enough. You need to get another person. And they're looking at me like I'm like crazy. And I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, I'm exhausted, and it wouldn't even matter if I wasn't. We need another person. So we got another person, but it took four of us to restrain him.
Wow.
Yeah,
All
it
right.
took
He's not
four.
that feisty.
Oh my God, it was ridiculous. But then they got what they needed to get. Then we transfer him up to the PICU, and they're all trying to look at him, and he wouldn't let anyone touch him. And I
Hmm.
was like, you need to feed him. I'm like, if you want to touch him, examine him, you need to give him Pedialyte or something. The kid hasn't eaten since he's thrown up whatever he had the night before, so he doesn't have anything in his belly. He's not going to let you touch him, and I mentally cannot take anymore. Like, I'm just like, I can't
Yeah.
do it.
So hard, huh?
So they
Yeah.
finally let him eat, and then after that, he just like sat there because he was
Oh.
so tired. But I was
Uh,
just like,
yeah.
this kid has like superhuman strength and like
Yeah.
so determined. Like, I don't know if she's too little. I can't remember when he started to do this, but like if I say like, oh, no, no, like, no, you don't tell him no. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, you're gonna hear the word no. Like, you just have to deal with it. So I don't know what it is, but they need to add that to the BWS registry, like feisty
I
or
know.
something.
Did
Cause
you something that I was thinking about was like for your 12-week, you didn't know prenatally or you did?
nope, I, like you, thought something was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was always like a little bit bigger, but I was like, he's my second baby, and Michael was a big baby before.
Right, which is what I thought.
Yeah,
And I
so
was
I'm
like, oh, I
like,
just had a baby. Like,
yeah, you're like, I know what's going on. But then around like my 20-week appointment, I was like, okay, I'm huge. Like, I'm
mm,
really big, and I'm chasing around another baby. So it's not like
yeah,
like the first time I had at it, like I ate whatever I wanted. I was huge with my first son, but this was like a whole different level of huge. And I remember saying to the doctor, I feel like I have a 12-pound baby in my belly. Like, I feel like he's going to be 12 pounds. And they kind of didn't really take me seriously. And then his belly, same thing, was measuring like huge, weeks ahead. And by the time I was maybe like 28 weeks pregnant, I had people like strangers stopping me, asking me if I was due any day. Like, that's how it
yeah.
was. But he had no intention of coming out at all.
Mm,
But they didn't take me seriously. Like, they still wanted me to try and have him vaginally. They were like,
oh,
Yeah. They're like, we think he'll be like 10 pounds. And I was like, there is absolutely no way. I was like, I am not pushing this baby out. I'm terrified he's going to get stuck. I'm like, I
Yeah.
just feel baby everywhere. And they're like, well, your first son was 8 pounds, 13 ounces. Like, that's a big baby. I'm like, no, I know. But this is not the same thing.
Yeah.
And so I like really was like, I'm not doing it. Like, you need to take him by C-section. So, right before they took him out, the doctor was like, I'm still gonna, like, she was like smug about it. She was like, I'm still gonna guess like 10 pounds. And I was like, I'm guessing 12. And he was half an ounce shy of 12 pounds.
Oh my
I
gosh.
freaking knew it.
That's crazy.
But like,
I'm
even then,
lucky that she came
yes.
6 weeks early. She was 6 pounds and 2 ounces. I mean, when I
Yeah.
told people when my due date was, I work at the hospital, and
Yeah.
people be like, "When are you due?" And I'm like, they're like, "Were you just pregnant?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I was." They're like, "When are you due?"
Thanks.
And I'm like, "January." And they're like, "January?" And
Yeah.
I'm like, and I can't even tell you. So many people are like, "Oh, are you sure there aren't twins in there?"
Yeah.
Like everyone's like, "You are so huge."
Yeah.
Like,
Thank you.
I mean, because everyone just saw me pregnant, so they knew what I looked like
Right.
pregnant. And then they saw me this time, and they were like, "You are so huge." And I'm like, "I know."
Yeah.
And
It's
I think
great.
my amniotic fluid was measuring at 40 centimeters at one, or 40, whatever the measurement. I think greater than 25 is considered polyhydramnios.
Yeah.
So I was at 40 at one point, at one week, and I was just like, they're like, "Can you breathe? Like, are we gonna have, we might do an amnio reduction where
Oh
we
my God.
just draw some fluid out." And I'm like, I mean, I can still breathe. I'm fine.
Yeah, let's not
I'm
do
like,
that.
that's not, and then like the week after it came down, but
Did they say anything about your placenta or your umbilical cord?
so
Because mine
uh,
were huge.
yeah, so my placenta was very large. And I remember the OB saying, I don't know, she said when she went to go pull, or when she took it out, like the umbilical cord almost like fell off the placenta. Well, first of all, my
Wow.
umbilical cord was huge, and then she
Yeah.
said it was almost gonna fell off.
Wow.
Um, but what was crazy was we uh, ended up changing policy at the hospital because of this.
Oh,
So um, they didn't save my placenta.
okay.
And I know that Dr. Kalish was like really interested in my placenta and getting stuff to test, I guess, for my placenta. And I think that they probably would have um, processed testing for BWS, I guess. I'm not sure
Uh,
exactly, but that was like I guess that was one of her first questions for them. And when the neonatologist was like, "Oh, we're going to call downstairs and get your placenta," and I distinctly remember that they tossed it.
oh,
So they're changing policy, and I'm still really in touch. I'm in touch with the neonatologist that that was there for Gracie, even now. And we were discussing things that happened in my case. And, I said, maybe any woman that has polyhydramnios, like they should automatically save the
yeah.
placenta, instead of tossing it. And she's like, I could have sworn that like the policy was different here, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the
I think
placenta was
mine was
really big. What's that?
I think mine was tossed too.
Yeah. So, I don't know if it could be saved for research or like whatever.
Yeah.
Then maybe it should be saved.
Yeah, because it
So I
makes
think they ended up changing that policy, and I know, yeah. So
it makes you wonder like if they are able to do whatever with it, like what could they
right,
find from that?
yeah. I don't know. I guess that would be a question for Dr. Kalish. I'm sure she could answer that because
Yeah, that's cool.
yeah, because she had asked me if they had saved it when I was at CHOP, and I was like, no, they tossed it. So, um, but yeah.
Oh. Well,
Oh,
I am thankful that you hung in there and and we figured out switching
sorry.
phones and getting you on here. Are you going to the conference? I forget if I asked you that.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
We're
All
gonna
right.
go.
There's
We're
going to
gonna
be
go.
people going, so we'll see you there. And
Yeah. Do you know if we can attend the professional ones, like the professional lectures?
That's a good question.
Because I felt like there was a lot on there that I would, not that I don't want to say prefer to go to over
Right.
the other ones, but there was a lot on there. Like the whole point of me wanting to go is like to see what's the latest medicine and how they
Yeah.
treat certain things. And so the
Right.
hemihypertrophy and the orthodontic and jaw shape one was really is what really, one of the one things that interest me. So, but that
I
was on the professional side, not the family program. So I'm like,
have to ask her. I'll have to shoot her an email because I would like to attend some of those ones too,
yeah,
especially the same ones, because I noticed those possible issues with him. And it's just hard because I feel like I've said it before, like the syndrome is almost like a watch and wait, um,
yeah, it is.
which is
You
real
just don't
difficult.
know. Yeah, you just
Like,
don't know what's going to happen in the future. And
yeah, and you kind of feel like you're watching things happen in front of you that you're like, should we intervene yet or should we not? And so
right.
I think those lectures would be really helpful for those things. So I'll shoot her an email, and if she gets back to me before, I can let you know and see what she said.
Yeah, you know who Evan really he gets back to people
Does
really
he?
quick.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
he
cool.
like he like
He's
emails
so
me.
great.
He emails me back within like an hour. He's
Oh, that's
awesome.
awesome. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
good.
So, um,
Oh.
well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no
Sorry,
problem.
my mind was kind of like all over the place. I don't even know if I
Oh no, oh
communicated
my God.
everything that I wanted to, but
Well, and that's what I said to my husband. I'm like, oh, this is the worst when this happens because I feel like people are like, they're like, okay, I'm ready. And then I'm like, wait, take number 15,000. Like, I'm so sorry.
no, that was my phone, obviously.
Yeah, I like, that's why I'm like, I'll send the emails out, but even like, I swear I learned something new, technical problem wise, every time
Yeah,
I do one of these. And I'm like, okay, wait, let me add that to the email. Let me add that. So, I mean, it's gonna. I don't think I've had one that's been like whew, smooth sailing. I think people
mm.
are like used to it now. They're like, let's wait a half hour, and then everyone will be on.
That's
And if you
funny.
guys need anything, like when you're in town, you're not far at all, so we should
Yeah,
definitely.
where do you, well, I don't know if you want to say on.
Do you know where Sesame Place is?
Yeah.
I'm right near Sesame Place.
Oh, okay. I'm like exit 7 off of 195. So,
Oh, okay, yeah,
yeah.
we're not far at all.
No.
So yeah, we'll have to make play dates and
But
stuff.
are you in Pennsylvania? No, you're in
Yep,
Jersey.
I'm
Oh,
in
you're
Pennsylvania. Hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that was the other thing. A question for you.
Hmm.
Healthcare wise,
Mm.
I think the state of Pennsylvania does recognize BWS. Um,
They so he gets medical assistance through the state. Um,
right. Because of the diagnosis of BWS.
yes,
Yeah.
because of that. Um, Now I don't know how every state is. I do know some people get
New
denied.
Jersey, they don't care
They don't.
about
So
BWS. No.
they don't.
No, because when Chop, the social worker, had called me, she was
Interesting.
like, "Well, I see that you live in New Jersey. So in the state of Pennsylvania, BWS is recognized, and you do receive assistance from the state, but in New Jersey, you don't. Like New Jersey's the toughest state for absolutely everything.
So even
Um,
if she's getting treated at CHOP, it doesn't matter.
no, it doesn't matter because my place of residence
Is
is,
Jersey.
yeah, and a lot. She said a lot of people who have like not BWS children, but children who really have a lot of special needs, they end up like moving out of New Jersey to Pennsylvania a lot of the
Yeah.
time because New Jersey's terrible with stuff like that.
Oh.
Um, do you find that do you find that the medical assistance that he gets from the state like is a good supplement to like what you
Yes.
have? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like my husband, he's actually he's crying right now, the baby. But
Oh,
my husband's
if
gonna.
you have to go,
No, it's okay. I can see my husband in the kitchen. He's getting the bottle. um, my husband works at CHOP, which is good because he carries the
oh,
kids on his
okay,
CHOP insurance. So
okay.
a lot of things aren't nearly as bad as they like. The bills wouldn't be as bad if he worked somewhere else.
Hmm.
But medical assistance usually takes care of whatever's left. So
So
every
it's
once
like a
in a while,
secondary.
yeah. So it's a secondary. So they'll bill his CHOP insurance first, and then whatever's left over, medical assistance will pick up. Um, and it's a shame because I didn't realize that so many people had such a struggle with that, because I don't think a lot of people, I think more people are in your shoes not having medical assistance.
Yeah, she was carried under me, and then Dave added her as a secondary the day that she was born when we found out, or when we
Right.
realized that she had WS. And his insurance picked up everything left over, and my insurance, even though I worked for a hospital, was terrible.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and
That's how mine
and
is. I'm like,
and
thank you.
now his insurance is the primary, and we pay like a pretty high premium, but I mean I haven't seen like a denial yet.
That's good.
I mean, they wrote us a letter and asked us why she needs oxygen. So I guess I'm gonna have to get Dr. Cielo to, write a letter about why she needs it, even though she doesn't really wear it.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I was just wondering how that worked for you. But
Yeah, I
yeah.
do know a lot of, I don't know if Alicia's still on here, but Alicia is from Florida, and she is debating like really what to do, because she's like, you know, this is crazy. She's come to CHOP to see Dr. Kalish, like, and her daughter needs a lot of stuff, and she's like, I don't think that we can live here. Like, I think I need to go somewhere where there's better. No, I think he has it under control. See,
Is he just hungry?
he's mad. Why is he mad?
You're talking too loud.
Because I'm talking too loud. He's such a smart ass. No, he's joking. I think it's because my husband can't find his binky.
And that's the other thing. Gracie, she can't soothe herself because she can't. I mean, to get her thumb in her mouth, she's like the.
Yeah. So Owen he wouldn't take a bink. Like, no, he
Yeah.
wouldn't take one. And then after, the ones that he takes now are the ma'am
All right.
binkies.
I have to look in.
Yeah, we had to buy, like, he's been on a 16-month-old binky since he was like 2 months
Oh,
old.
like a bigger one to fill his mouth.
Yes. So he, after surgery, there's like this Beanie Baby. I think they call it a frog, actually. You got that Beanie Baby thing that they put on the babies.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
actually let us keep ours after his tongue reduction surgery, and I knew, like, I'm like, he's not going to suffocate with this because he's such a fighter. Like, if he can't breathe, he's going to move. So I would have the binky in there, and then kind of just use the arms to kind of just like prop it in until he got used to his new tongue. And now he'll walk around, and he does like use his lip to keep it in, but he does keep it in now. So
Yeah,
I hope that she'll be able.
hopefully, because
Before,
although I don't know,
no
my
way.
son's 20 months old and can't get rid of his binky, so I'm like, maybe it's a blessing in disguise
Yeah.
if she doesn't take one.
I know.
But anyhow,
Well, yeah, let us know. I'm looking forward to meeting you guys
yeah,
at the conference. And then
yeah,
during her
absolutely.
production, let us know, like, if you guys just need a break, or just any,
Oh, thanks.
or if you just like need someone to talk to, or just to, because it's hard. I mean, I've been there.
Yeah,
So we're
thanks.
only like 30 minutes from the hospital. So
I'll message you if I have any questions.
yeah, yeah, and get a lot of. You're gonna want a lot of bibs. I'll send you the
Oh, I know. I have 40 bibs already. She goes
Oh,
through
good.
like 25, 30 a day, easy. The
Yeah.
drooling and the
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. So you're gonna want to pack all 40 of them.
They're like all stained. Like people probably think I'm so gross. Like when she goes out because they're like all.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
bibs, and I'm trying to think what else. Just like little things that'll help make her feel at home. Just because she's
Yeah.
gonna feel different because she's used to being at home, and now she's gonna be in there. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're only 30 minutes away, so just send us.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Yeah, I'll see you at the conference then.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Have a good night.
All right, you too.
Thanks.